Sorry.
Quiet, please, thank you. Now is the time that has been set aside, and this is the place set aside for a public hearing regarding Cumberland County Emergency Solutions Grant. Ms. Molinaro.
Good morning. The county is considering an application to the PA Department of Community and Economic Development for the 2018 funding round of the Emergency Solutions Grant. The total application that we're proposing is $240,000 for budget activities to include $200,000 for emergency shelter essential services at the James Wilson Safe Harbor. This funding will be used for things like case management, life skills, and resident education and training, and assistance in identifying permanent housing options. And then $40,000 for street outreach activities. These dollars would support a mobile outreach program that's being proposed by Community Cares, in which caseworkers will take their case management and housing identification search activities to unsheltered homeless individuals and families either living on the streets or in places not meant for human habitation. Their intent is to conduct on-site assessments, to make appropriate referrals for shelter and other housing options right there on the street where the families and individuals are. As you're aware, the county has an established existing administrative agreement with the redevelopment authority that requires a dollar-for-dollar match, which will be met using either county CPG dollars set aside for emergency shelter activities, continuing care dollars received by the housing authority, and the value of donated labor and goods provided to Safe Harbor and Cares. And so at this time, I either ask Scott Scholl, who's the executive director of the shelter, or if you have any comments or accept comments and questions from the public or commissioners.
Just real briefly, we work very well with the Housing Authority. We appreciate their support in putting this together. As you all know, we did not receive a long time grant last fiscal year, and so we're hoping that we change things around a little bit, focus on the priorities for GCED that will come through this time around. So we're working hard to make that happen. But we always appreciate the support of the commissioners as well. But Kate does a fantastic job of pulling it all together for the Housing Authority. We really enjoy that relationship.
How big was that, Scott? How big was that loss?
$200,000.
Yeah, okay.
So we're hoping to fill that with this $200,000.
That was my question.
Yep.
Scott, what was the form of the previous grant? It came through DCED as well?
Yes. Yes, that's how it works. They changed priorities. Basically, the last time around, we asked, as we always had over a 10-year cycle, for shelter operations funding. They have prioritized such things as case management, transportation, life skills training, those things, which we do. We were advised badly by DCD not to change our request the last time around, and we didn't, and we got nothing. So this time around, we're ignoring that poor advice, and we're actually focusing on the things that they have said are their priorities.
Okay, that sounds good. Could you explain a little bit about how the $40,000 for the street outreach is going to work?
Sure. So the intent of the street outreach component of the grant is to take services directly to homeless populations on the street or in other places not meant for human habitation, not in shelters, physically on the street. And so CARES recently purchased a van that helps them transport the guests of their shelters back and forth to the resource center. And so they want to expand the use of that vehicle to actually take services to the street to conduct coordinated assessment evaluations to ensure that we're not missing anybody. It's supposed to function almost like the point in time count where we have a cohort of volunteers that go out on an evening in January and identify street homeless, unsheltered homeless individuals and families.
So are there going to be an individual or individuals, case managers or whatever that are
Correct.
going to be, and that's what this funding is for?
Correct.
Does the board have any other questions of Kate or Scott? Staff have any questions? Anyone in the audience have any questions? Any board members have any comments? Any staff members have any comments? Anybody in the audience have any comments? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 28th Cumberland County Commissioners Workshop meeting. Would you all please stand and join me in the pledge?
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:06 a.m. and open the floor to any public comments. Hearing and seeing none, I'll move us along to agenda item number 3 and call on Commissioner DiFilippo to present 4 employee recognitions. The first is Curtis Hall with Public Safety.
Several years of service awards today. First, we're starting with Curtis Hall. Kurt was hired in 1991 as a part-time dispatcher. June of 1993, he became full-time. February of 1995, was promoted to dispatcher 2. January 2003, promoted to shift leader. In May of 2004, was promoted to shift supervisor. Many of you probably know, but for those of you who don't, Kurt, are you still chief deputy supervisor? I am. Okay. Kurt and his family have been highly active in the New Kingston Fire Company for many, many years. This entire family has devoted their life to service. And Kurt, really thank you for what you've done here for the county and what you're doing too in Silver Spring. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have any comments, anything you want to say, John?
Just very proud of Kurt and his dedication to the county and his local community as a fire chief. Does an outstanding job as a supervisor, and we rely on his experience, and we're glad to have him.
Thank you.
Just got a picture of her on squeeze it one. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you.
Next, we have Melissa Mixel, tax claims.
Melissa, as well as celebrating 25 years of service in the county, she was hired in June of 1993 as a switchboard operator. January of 1996 was transferred and promoted to staff assistant in tax claims. May 2000 was promoted to tax claims supervisor. Melissa, thank you for your many years of service. Would you like to say anything?
It's amazing, 25 years goes really fast, especially when I'm only 35. You know? But it's been good, so have a good staff over there.
Bonnie, anything you want to say?
Absolutely. Mel, her customer service is beyond, as you can imagine, sometimes she deals in difficult situations, but she always makes it look easy, so thank you.
Thanks, Lord.
Thank you.
Next, we have Stephanie Williams with the Planning Department.
Our star of our land preservation video.
Stephanie is celebrating 20 years of service, and as Melissa, she started when she was 10. Stephanie was hired in May of 1998 as the waste and recycling coordinator. In April 2002, was promoted to Greenway and Open Space Coordinator and Senior Planning Manager. Stephanie, thank you for your 20 years of service. I know you've been very active in the county's efforts for farmland preservation, and thank you for your service to the county. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. I met Stephanie back in 2002. I admit that first meeting wasn't the greatest. I had just gotten hired in economic development. She was coming over as the open space coordinator. So I got hired on like a Friday. I said, next week's your opening day. You're going to have this office. It's kind of a nice little office over in the building next door. It had a window. I go in that first day. There's Stephanie in my office. I had this little sliver of an office. Like, what happened? But in any event, she earned that office from that day. I think the biggest testimony I can give to Stephanie is the results speak. When you look at what we've done in the planning department, whether it be land preservation with our open space plan, with our farmland preservation program, we show results that are recognized statewide, and it's all due to Stephanie's effort. I can't say enough good things about her. Rarely do you find an employee that is a manager you can fully depend on and have no doubts about whatever they're engaged in, and that's what I have to Stephanie. So great job.
Thanks,
Stephanie, great letter the other day. And next we have Stephanie Hodecker with Aging and Community Services.
Stephanie is celebrating 20 years of service. She was hired in June of 1998 as a Department Clerk 2 for Aging and Community Services. She was transferred and promoted in December 2002 to Data Examiner for the Controller's Office, then transferred in November of 2004 to Aging and Community Services as the Department Clerk 3. She was promoted in March 2007 as a Fiscal Technician, Financial Technician. Stephanie, thank you for your 20 years of service. Anything you'd like to say?
I want to thank Stephanie for her years of service. I really think of Stephanie as kind of like the ever-ready bunny, but without the symbols. She's very quiet, and but always gets the job done and is willing to help wherever she is needed. It's not often that you get to say, we look forward to 20 more years of service. We have watched Stephanie grow right out of high school. So she's been with us, and we look forward to many more years. Thank you very much.
That takes us to agenda item number 7. We go back to Kate Molinaro with a discussion on the Emergency Solutions Grant 2018 application. Kate?
Commissioners, as you heard Scott say during the public hearing, we believe that the application that we're preparing more accurately reflects DCE's priorities for shelter operations, and then additionally those street outreach activities. So we ask that your Monday meeting to adopt a resolution before you to authorize the submission of the application.
And I believe this is for Monday, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That takes us to agenda item number 8, which is Jonathan Bowser is here from KV to discuss a letter of support for the Tyco redevelopment project.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you all know, KV through its subsidiary, Real Estate Collaborative, purchased the former Tyco site here in the borough of Carlisle just last month. And part of the process, it is a brownfield site. We do expect over the next couple of months to demolish the building, and then also remediate the site. So what we're asking for today is a approval of a draft letter of support that you have, that we would send over to DCED to support our application for remediation of that site.
Any questions, Commissioner?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. We have on agenda item number 9, Rebecca Yeri, discussing the shop study loan request from Robert Burry.
Bob Garrett. The funeral home has been a mainstay on Main Street in downtown Mechanicsburg for 109 years. There aren't many businesses who can make that sort of claim, but there are plenty of reasons to believe that the funeral home will be in downtown Mechanicsburg 100 years from now. Any small business is really hard work, and in these changing times, you adapt or you aren't in business for very long. It's no different in the funeral business. We know that many people are opting not to be buried, they're finding other ways to do things. Not all post obituaries. Some don't even have services any longer. So that business, that industry has really changed. And in Pennsylvania, we have yet another difference in that funeral homes are not allowed to have a traditional meal or post-service luncheon on the premises. It's that chance, that last chance to meet with the family and get together, especially for out-of-town guests, family members, to even unwind and talk with family members. In Pennsylvania, it's outlawed and it's outrageous. This ain't Ohio, where you could easily confuse the post-service luncheon reception with that of the wee hours of a wedding reception, in that you have food and a whole lot of other things. For Bob Dure, that means bye-bye to that part of what could be his business. That business is going elsewhere. And that also means that a lot of times families are disappointed because a funeral home can't provide the full array of services that they might otherwise be able to offer. So in very Bob-like fashion, he will remedy this situation by purchasing and growing the business, buying a building 2 doors down at 23 East Main Street. Here, the funeral home business will be the tenant in the first floor and offer food services from the existing kitchen. This was what used to be the Stage and Studio Cafe, and prior to that, the Warm Hearts Cafe. It's the utmost inconvenience because, like I said, it's 2 doors down and there's parking already there. With this acquisition, Bob will be the envy of all in the downtown. Parking is that hardy perennial. He'll have 90 parking spaces right in the midst of the core downtown. Even better, and not to brag, Bob has always offered his parking to neighbors, to associates, and to the public when we have our events and when those spaces aren't being used for the funeral home business. An added gathering place, that's great news, and not just to Bob, but also to the local eateries who are also cramped for space. They don't have places for parties or for reunions or for special events. They need space as well. So Bob will help fill that gap. The first floor venue can seat up to 100 people and has big windows in the front of it. So you'll be able to see people enjoying, people having a good time there, and we know that people attract people. They'll open it up to others to rent for conferences, workshops, meetings, special events, and special goings on. And like I said, we're cramped for meeting space. In fact, the Downtown Mechanicsburg Partnership, the downtown organization, guess where we meet? Guess where we hold our board meetings every month? At the funeral home. So we'll have another option. I worked with Bob on many projects. He purchased the funeral home real estate and business assets in 2011 and then another property in order to be able to expand. He's always had his eye on this particular property. It's had some issues in the past. Could use Bob's TLC. He remodeled the funeral home business building inside and out, top to bottom, and you know that's how we do things. A number of years ago, you'll recall that with your assistance, with your approval, we changed the facade grant program to become the Cumberland Street View grant program. It was a loan program, nobody utilized it. Well, Bob's project for the exterior of the building won the Mechanicsburg Boroughs and the Harbs Award for 2017. Their Award of Excellence goes to one commercial property for their work in historic preservation and promotion. So he's been tested, and we love the things that he does with his property. Bob started the Myers-Bury Funeral Home and Crematory in 2011 with one employee, that'd be Bob, and now has 17 full or part-time employees. He'll be adding 2 as a result of this loan, and he'll have those 2 employees within 2 years. I suspect they'll be probably 2 or 3 months. The first floor's been vacant since 2015, following the collapse of the roof and a wall in a rear structure that had jeopardized neighbors, and American House is one of them. Commissioner Eichelberg, well, you're probably all familiar with where American House is, for many years, and then that building was subsequently raised, creating a lovely parking lot. He may be a funeral director, but he just has a way of bringing things back to life. So he's done quite a bit for the block, and will continue to do so. This $70,000 loan request is to acquire a building at 23 East Main. The purchase price is $255,000. First floor would be leased to Myers-Bury Funeral Home for use as an event venue, the kitchen, and a rental space. The Mechanicsburg Borough, their loan committee last night approved a $40,000 loan for acquisition. The CDBG shop setting loan would be secured by the mixed-use property. Cumberland County would be in a second lien position behind the borough. Liens will be placed on the fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, and Bob will provide a personal guarantee. Bob will provide the remainder of the acquisition cost, $145,000 in cash, plus $80,000, about $80,000 in renovations and cost to open the business. Approval of this shop setting loan assures that our long-standing business and a valued community asset stays put. While others have chosen to stretch their legs elsewhere, he saw fit to grow his business right in downtown, and we're all the better for it. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have about his loan request.
Okay. Well, maybe you can tell me this, many other funeral homes, owners, operators in Cumberland County, engaged on this or engaged in this. I see that, I guess some around the state have, but I'm not aware of any others in the county.
Sure. So an expert on all the funeral homes in the state, I'm not, but being familiar with many of the funeral homes, there are not many opportunities for funeral homes to grow in this fashion. In fact, one funeral home in Western Pennsylvania has done this in their existing building, and they've been embroiled in a court case ever since with our state board because of the use of food without a completely separate address. There are very few that have tried to do something like this nearby, but mostly because acquiring real estate is difficult. I mean, you have people going in and don't want to sell. So we're very fortunate to have the opportunity. I know that we have funeral homes nearby who have tried to do something like this away from their primary building, and that is a benefit to be sure, but when people have to get in their cars, you've lost them. So you've now opened yourself up to non-traditional competitors, and people today are moving very rapidly in the direction of a party versus a traditional funeral. So this type of venue lends itself to that for those families that don't want to be in a funeral home. So it's a great way to keep alive. If we broaden our gaze a little bit to national, this is absolutely the salvation of funeral service on a national level, especially in the West.
Okay. So this is happening more and more.
Oh, yes.
So if I understand this correctly, you're not actually going to be preparing food, it's going to all be catering?
So that's a very good question. To be very candid with you, we're not sure exactly where that's going at the moment. So let me tell you where we are currently and where our view is as we move forward. We are going to have a commercial kitchen, and it looks as though, especially with our partner in the borough in supporting us, that a restaurant is the type of facility that we need to be for zoning purposes. So by definition, we'll have the ability to prepare food there, and our intention would be to get the licensing required to do that.
This morning, in fact, I spoke with our insurance agent to make sure we had the liability issues covered on that side. We have been partnering for a couple of years with local businesses, restaurants, if you will, in our area, to provide catering services. And prior to that, we were dealing with catering companies, but funeral homes are too small for most of the large catering companies and mid-sized catering companies. So places like Snappers, if you're familiar with them in Casper, have been a tremendous provider of our food now for a couple of years, and we actually have a growing partnership with them in this endeavor. When I say partnership, what I mean is they would be a very favorable food provider in this facility. They would not have ownership or operation of it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the way it was explained here in this piece, it sounded as though it was mostly going to be catering, or you're going to rely on caterers.
So it depends. Right now,
You might change your mind on that.
well, I'm a bit robust in the midsection. I'm not a chef. So to be candid with you,
They're not the only one.
to hire a chef at this point is a little beyond the scope of this project. We're going to have the facilities to hire our own, but that brings a whole other aspect to this, because how do we sustain that with periodic events? That was one of the things that sank State Studio. They couldn't find a chef to commit to the times they needed when they were open so rarely or on such last minute, and that is a concern. So I think our solution long-term is going to be a combination between having our own chef and also having outside restaurants and caterers that will come in to fill the gap. We haven't quite figured that out.
I see this loan as a second behind the borough. What program did the borough use to loan money, and how much did the borough loan?
The borough will lend $40,000. They have their own loan program that dates back to the early 1980s. Remember the 80s? It's funded by the state initially as a revolving loan program.
Okay. And then the only other question I had, and I'm going to my colleague has some questions, but this loan is conditioned on the creation of 2 full-time positions, 2 full-time jobs.
Or part-time equivalents.
Okay, do we have, with our loan programs, that kind of job creation requirement?
With the CDBG loans, that's
We do.
always a requirement.
Okay.
And we check that every 6 months, and the borrowers will receive paperwork from us requesting an update on who they've hired or not, and who those persons are, and various demographic information.
All right, so you're fully aware of that? And
Yes, sir.
you're okay with that? Yeah, I don't have any other questions.
I'll just mention as a native Mechanicsburger, I'm enthusiastic about the concept you've outlined here. It will be a super addition to the town. Downtowns sometimes have a problem finding that natural fit element. You're already there, you've got a great reputation, the need is there with the space to be filled, obviously. I think this will be a fantastic addition for the borough and obviously for your business as well. And Bob, we appreciated your role with the downtown partnership, the new energy you breathed into. Bob's a real spark plug. I mean, if he says he's gonna do it, he does it. So we're very fortunate to have him in town and taking over, having taken over a historic business and ensured its continuity and growth and adaptation to the changing marketplace. So I think this is going to be a super. This is an easy vote as far as I'm concerned.
Rebecca, your summary was excellent.
Yep.
My questions, you answered them as you went through it. And Bob, I think it's a great idea. We wish you great success.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda item number 10, contracts and grants, and I'll call on Sandy. Sandy?
Thank you, Steve. We'll move on to agenda item 10, Roman numeral 1, A through D, which are existing contracts, contract extensions, or addendums with no additional costs or increase to the county, which would include the following agreements. There are 20 agreements for children and youth, 1 agreement for Claremont Nursing and Rehabilitation Center, 1 one agreement for drug and alcohol, and one agreement for facilities. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments concerning any of these agreements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 10, Roman numeral 2, which consists of new contracts, vendor services, grants, and contracts with increases and decreases to the county. And begin by calling on Jamie Reaver, who will be discussing the 2 agreements for children and youth. Jamie?
Good morning, Commissioners. The first contract is an amendment to the Bear Foundation contract. Last year, in fiscal year 17-18, they requested a $5 increase for their foster parent rates, and we requested that they split that up over the course of 2 fiscal years. So we are just granting them the additional $2.50 at the beginning of 18-19. The other one is for the Christian Home of Johnstown. We needed to add a one-on-one supervision rate for a particular difficult child that was placed in their facility who has since moved. But in order to have them agree to keep him there, we had to add this to the contract to pay for one-on-one supervision.
Are there any questions, Jamie?
No, good.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Sandy, before we move on, could I just go back and ask you a question relative to the existing contract extensions or addenda? I'm interested in 1B. Is that contract being extended for 3 years, or what's the situation on that? And I apologize.
That's okay. Here is Melissa. As soon as I find it. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can,
Yeah,
Melissa.
Melissa. Okay.
Hold on, Melissa. Are you talking about the Sodexo?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Is that?
Yes, that's what we're talking
What's
about.
before you, is it?
Yes.
Can you turn it?
You let her speak.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay, what's before you with the Sodexo contract is a 3-month extension while we negotiate the rates and a possible 3-year contract with them.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to check on that.
Okay,
All right, so this is
Sure.
at this point, just a 3-month extension. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Melissa, do you want to go ahead and discuss the 2 agreements for the nursing home?
sure. Dr. Lewis Greer, not Green, Greer, is a podiatrist. I'm sorry, got feedback for some reason. Is a podiatrist that we'd like to get in-house. It's a 0 contract, there's no cost to us. He will bill insurance, the residents' insurances himself, and he's very much aware of how to bill. He had to pay residents, so this should not. The second one is biomedical applications, which just is dialysis contract. We need this, we have one resident who is following his physician with this contract.
Are there any questions for Melissa?
And again, there's no cost to us other than not for the dialysis treatment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan Simon is here today to discuss the PCCD grant. Commissioners, please note this is an action requested item for today. Ryan?
Good morning, Commissioners. We are requesting to take action on a project modification request to the Pennsylvania Crime and Delinquency Commission. This is for the opioid intervention court. The current grant is supposed to end on June 30th, and we are asking PCCD to consider extending that until December 31st of 2018. They have to request permission from the feds, but we have to get our request into them beforehand. Any questions?
So your request, Ryan, is an extension till the end of the year?
Correct.
Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the request to extend the grant funding contract, I guess, right?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or
Just
comments?
so I understand this correctly, it's because we haven't expended the funds within the time of the original contract period.
That is correct. It took a while from whenever we received the funds to hire the staff.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, we'll move on and ask Michelle Fiver to discuss the VOCA grant for victim services. Michelle?
Good morning. This was a competitive grant, and we were awarded almost $170,000 just 30 months to hire an advocate.
Are there any questions for Michelle?
This is just the award letter.
This would be a new position.
Yes.
Okay. When the grant funding goes away, is this position eliminated then? or do
We'll have to address it then. Whether I apply for another grant, depending on statistics, 30 months from now, what that looks like.
Okay. All right, I have no problem with it, but I think it's important that the individual who's hired understands.
Yes.
That it's a, it's a one-year grant that we'll be having
Well,
now.
it's, yeah, 30 months.
2 years.
so-
Any other questions? Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll move on to agenda item E and call Ryan Simon again to discuss board agreements for drug and alcohol. Ryan?
The contract for Twin Lakes Center, we are asking for 2% increases for their adult detox and short-term rehab. Again, this is an inpatient provider, so their home county has reviewed their request and approved their reasoning behind the request for the increase. Addiction Recovery Systems is one of our providers of methadone maintenance, and they are asking for a 25-cent increase per day. They provide methadone and outpatient services for individuals who need it. Cadenzia has a number of locations, and they're asking for increases between -1% and 9%. Again, those went through their home counties who reviewed the packets. And then Eagleville Hospital, that contract is for hospital-based detox and rehab and non-hospital-based detox and rehab. And they're asking for 3% increases on the non-hospital services. Any questions?
I have.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to Dana Best, who will be discussing the findings of Dana.
Hank Huggins is our actuary for our workers' comp self-insurance fund. They do various different things, but in my opinion, the most important is helping us set the rates for next year so you can charge the grants. The agreement is a one-year agreement, and the cost is $4,705, which is a 2.9% increase from the previous year. And we did RFP this a few years ago and got a substantial decrease. We haven't even reached what we used to pay, so.
Any questions for Dana? Thank you, Dana. Next, we'll move on to Mark Adams to discuss the agreement between Civic Plus and IMTO. Mark?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is our annual software support, maintenance, and hosting fees for Civic Plus, which is our website. The total cost this year is $14,692 and change. It did go up $1,800 from last year, but half of that, $900 worth, is for some new subscription licenses. So we're getting more people subscribing to content on our website. So we ran out of licenses and we had to upgrade that. So if you're familiar with the Notify Me process, where people subscribe to news or to bid announcements or to other calendar events, that's why we're increasing that services.
Any questions for Mark?
Not now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Sue.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. The two contracts that we have here are amendments for 1718. The first one for Amy Kemp, who is a speech therapist, is for 26, let me say that again, $2,605 for increase in her speech therapy services. The second one for Ingo Healthcare is an increase of $18,453 due to services for evaluations for the increased number of referrals that we have for these young children. Again, this is all state dollars.
Any questions for Sue? Thank you, Sue. Next, I'd like to call on Kirk to discuss the grant for Cumberland Bridge. Kirk?
Sure, Commissioners, this is the reimbursement agreement for the $2 million for Cumberland Bridge. This is from our, the funding given to us by PennDOT for a $5 fee registration rate.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thanks, Kurt.
Earl's here to discuss the Pennsylvania Counseling Services Agreement. Earl?
This is a fiscal year agreement, with PA Counseling Services, providing sex offender treatment down at the jail. And we share that yearly cost of $11,507 with our partners down at LHIED. The jail pays half, they pay half. This is actually a decrease of around $5,000 from our previous vendor.
Any questions for Earl? Thank you, Earl.
Okay, that takes us to agenda item number 11. We have Paul Kalinsky who will discuss a donation to the Opioid Intervention Board.
Good morning. The Carlisle Chamber of Commerce has graciously donated $340 from proceeds in their May golf tournament to support the Opioid Intervention Court, and I'm seeking the board's approval to accept this donation.
Any questions, Commissioners?
No problem, it's great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul. Next, I'll call on Ron Snow to discuss the SAM, or Entity Administrator, Ron, or Dana.
I'm filling in for Ron. We decided that one person would sit through the meeting so that we can get work done. But this is the SAM systems for the federal government. It is the contracting system. In the past, Tammy Klusman has done it, but now the federal government is requiring that we do formal paperwork that assigns her the entity administrator. And somebody has to be responsible for making sure all of the paperwork on the SAMs is up to date in order to do the contracting with the federal government. And the two biggest users of the system is Rebecca and Eric, but we do have other departments that use it, that need to be in as a contractor.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on then to Samantha Robinson with the Ag Extension regarding a copy release.
Good morning, Commissioners. Our old lease is coming up. Just asking for renewal of our new one. It saves about a little over $70 a month, actually. So the price dropped.
Any questions, Commissioners?
No, fine, thank you.
Thank you. We'll next move to Commissioner Liaison Reports. Commissioner DiFilippo.
I had none that fell in my time period. Library board did not meet in June. But just want to note that I did attend for the second year in a row the South Mountain Radio Amateur Group. And, this past Saturday was like a national field day for all the amateur radio clubs not only in America, in North America. And these folks do quite a service for us all. They hardly ever get any recognition, but they were happy to see an elected official there. And they have competition throughout other clubs and groups in the country. And they said, we're really happy. I mean, they're very happy to see an elected official there. And I said, what is that? She said, because we get 100 points if one of you guys shows up. And they said, that's equivalent to like 50 connections to deliver broadcast or reception. So you can see why they were so happy to see it. I know it wasn't a charming personality, but they're good. I just want to make note, they're a good group of people who do it. They are very dedicated to what they do. Kind of hard to understand all the technical jargon that they're throwing at me, but good stuff. That's all I have.
It's interesting that you talk about competing clubs, because apparently we have another Cumberland County amateur radio club that was also
Yeah, and it's Schaefer Field.
down at Schaefer Field. So tell you what, maybe next year I'll go to that one.
Yeah.
And then they can each get on. They can each get on.
That's a good idea. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Herzog?
Yes, Steve. The Aging Advisory Board met Friday, June 15th. Not an awful lot to report, but there was a discussion about what more can be done to attract younger seniors to get involved in our community older adult centers and activities that might help in that respect. There also was continuing discussion about the additional $2 million that Governor Wolf secured in this year's state budget from state lottery proceeds for protective services for older adults. On average now, it's reported that our Office of Aging is receiving and is investigating about 900 reports of elder abuse annually in our county. The Capital Region Council of Governments met Monday evening, June 18th. The COG is now 42 municipal members strong, with municipalities represented from 5 counties now in the region, not just Dauphin and Cumberland, but Perry, Lancaster, and York counties as well. Steve Deck, the new Executive Director of Tri-County Regional Planning, gave an overview of the Harrisburg Area Transportation Studies work on a long-range regional transportation plan. There was also a presentation by Ed Ward, who's the municipal contract manager for Penn Waste. And because of new, very strict restrictions by China on the import of items for recycling costs on our municipalities and taxpayers are expected to go up. And there will be a reduction in the number of items that can be recycled. After years of promoting recycling as a way to protect our environment by reducing the tonnage that ends up being dumped in our landfills, Penn Waste is now out with a disclaimer, when in doubt, throw it out. It appears we're heading backward instead of forward on this front, unfortunately. Earlier in the evening, I attended the meeting of the Capital Region Council of Governments Public Safety Committee, and while in its infancy, there is now a focus on an effort of collaboration among municipalities and our volunteer fire companies on our county's immediate west shore, and working toward the development of what they're calling a strike force fire response team to ensure rapid response to all fire calls in the wake of the continuing struggle to recruit new volunteers, and I'll have more on that as it develops. The county's Housing and Redevelopment Authority boards met last Thursday, June 21. The Housing and Redevelopment Authority, they're moving forward with a complete overhaul of their telephone and computer system. With new security system upgrades, they voted to enter into a 4-year CoStar's information technology service contract with a company, if I have this correct, Infradapt, for new phones, computers, software, hardware, the whole works. The Housing Authority received approval from HUD to enter into a partial deed of trust release on 323 square feet of its 2 West Penn property to facilitate the traffic roundabout that's planned as part of the Carlisle Events redevelopment project. The demolition of the fire destroyed property at 203 East Main Street, Mechanicsburg, is now complete. And a draft sales agreement for transfer of the property to the Mechanicsburg Museum Association is in the works. The Carlisle Veterans Project Pearl Phase 2 has been approved for tax credits by the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, with closing expected in the spring of next year. This project will complete the redevelopment of the Carlisle Tire and Wheel site. Students from Shippensburg University's Department of Social Work and Gerontology, meanwhile, have submitted a report on their class projects study of our county's public family housing and public senior housing offerings and needs, and which will be used to help guide the Housing and Redevelopment Authority into the future. And I have a copy of that report if either of my colleagues would like to review it. The county's Conservation District Board met Tuesday morning of this week. There was a presentation on the approach of the spotted lanternfly into our area. None have been seen in Cumberland County as of yet, but it's anticipated that this destructive bug, which could wreak havoc with our state's fruit industry, will eventually arrive in our county. And to prevent its incursion, it's recommended that our public and businesses be made aware of this critter and to inspect any vehicles that are arriving with deliveries from the quarantined areas of the state, which are primarily Berks, Chester, Lancaster counties at this point in time. The spotted lanternfly has been spotted in Lebanon County and appears to be working its way west. In addition, the Conservation District Board, meanwhile, took action to award 2018 Envirothon scholarships of $250 apiece to 7 college-bound high school seniors, and formally approved applications for a total of $241,000 in grants from the Mariner 2 pipeline revenues, fines that were levied against Sunoco Limited for county conservation projects. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Eichelberger?
Okay, not a lot to report, mostly because most of the issues I'm dealing with have already come before you, or we were all in the same meeting. So, EDC, of course, yesterday we heard from John Bowser and staff regarding the workforce development and military base preservation initiatives. If anyone that's interested in that, this was streamed and is in our webcast archive. And today, of course, you mentioned the Tyco site, and we'll take action on that letter. And all of us were in attendance at the board meeting last week, so I don't think there's anything I can really add to that. Planning department, the only thing is that Friday's the deadline for candidates for planning commission. We have a vacancy now and several vacancies that will develop later at the end of the year. And we're receiving resumes. Friday, as I say, is the deadline. So last chance to get that. We've got a few candidates, a few prospects that we may inquire about their availability who applied previously. But big choice to be made there, and we're trying to set it up so that we can also have a good stable of candidates for the vacancies that are coming in November. Now, of course, everyone's limited to 2 terms at most, so we're going to have a regular turnover there. We want to continue to build the capability of the board there and continue to have the level of excellence in attendance that we've had. I do have a bit of an update on recycling, the pretty standard stuff. There was no meeting of the authority this week, or this month rather, but Justin did send me a little bit of information here on the recycling center in particular. June, the amount of intake at this e-recycling center was 3,335 pounds. That's a significant uptick. We've been seeing some downtrend during the cold months, and then with all the rain in the spring, it was another downturn. But it's up substantially. This is total collected now since the startup is 457,593 pounds of recyclable materials. So that continues to be a pretty substantial number that otherwise would have made its way into the waste stream and now will not as a result of our formation of the e-recycling center. So it continues to be a resounding success, continues to be recognized by our constituents as a valuable service. Let's see, of course, there's the August 18th, we just a reminder, we have the Household Hazardous Waste event coming up, which will be held out at Allen Road. And Justin mentioned to me that they have a flyer, and they've been handing it out to everybody who comes to the e-recycling center as well, who's a Cumberland County resident. The center, of course, is open to everyone, but we continue to see that most of the county residents are using it. He makes sure they have a flyer so they know about the household hazardous waste, since you got an audience that's only inclined toward the practice of recycling. So, they have a workshop today, 3 to 5, that they have 25 people signed up to talk about, to hear about just the general precepts of recycling and what's required. And I just sent Justin a note based on your comment earlier, Jim, about the restrictions on acceptable materials, and I asked him if he could provide us an update on that. I haven't heard anything on that, but I have made the request, so he's generally pretty prompt, so if I get something, I'll share it.
He's on top of it, right? I did talk to him.
Okay, all right, I'd like to see something in writing, but I'm sure he'll give us a good summary. He is on top of those things that he's involved with, so. I believe that's everything I have.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I have any questions.
Go ahead.
No. Okay, thanks.
Actually, Gary's report on electronics recycling reminded me of a constituent's inquiry, a constituent who's paying attention. In any event, and I know that we're charging 50 cents a ton, and the question had to do with, how is that balancing out?
50 cents a
And
pound.
since- I'm sorry, 50 cents a pound.
That's being a
I'm sorry, 50 cents a pound.
Only off by factor of 2,000.
It's still true. It's still In any event, and I thought it was a good question, and I know that we've discussed it, but we apparently are exceeding all expectations. So the question that was posed was, do we need to continue to charge 50 cents a pound? I know when we first, opened this program and launched this program, the idea was that, we're going to make sure we covered our costs.
Right.
And maybe, we might want to consider having a little cushion. But at the end of the day, really, I don't think we should be making money off of this program. And if, we can maybe lower the fee based on the amount of customers we're getting and that, still cover our costs. I just was wondering whether we might be able to get a financial analysis as to our costs versus the revenue that was anticipated, the revenue that we're not receiving. So,
Yeah, Judd and Kirk both stated really on top of that, they briefed me on occasion on it, and they are planning to bring us an analysis, I guess on an annual basis, but we could certainly ask for something more. I do know they've reported to us that we're running ahead of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
That's mostly because of the amount of material, we think some of that's related to startup. Of course, we want the program to be sustainable for as long as it's needed. So they have had to make some adjustments along the way. So even though the margin with the current mix of product, the margin right now has been a little higher than expected, they're not certain that will continue, and also there was a little bit higher operational expense than expected with having to bring in a second person to do the supervision as well as the processing. So
I would imagine we also have to worry about because this is an annual contract with the firm in West Connecticut.
Yes.
That should be
I believe so. Last I talked to Judd about that, he said they're very happy with the arrangement.
Okay.
So unless something dramatic changes, and that's why I think we do need to keep an eye on this, the acceptable materials issue, because that could certainly change the equation and would for the contractor as well.
China, as I understand it, is up until a little while ago, they permitted items that would be recycled to be contaminated up to 10%, whatever 10%. And now they have lowered the percentage to something like 0.1%, which makes it essentially a situation where they won't be taking any of the world's trash for recycling anymore. Okay, and that creates a problem. So that's my understanding. And I don't know whether it has anything to do with the, this tariff thing or not, but
it's well known.
China is cracking down.
But China's long been more or less the dumping ground for the rest of the world of hazardous materials, and they've built that industry. They've been under a lot of public pressure to change how they process those materials as well as the human exposure aspect. So I think some of it is expected that they've evolved to a new phase of their growth in that industry. My guess would be the market's probably going to adapt to a significant degree, maybe not entirely, with other outlets for that, or change their practice.
Yeah, with the electronic recycling, I don't know who ends up with that for recycling. You know what I mean?
Right.
Does that go?
Well, the commercial recycler will constantly be surveying the market, and they have various outlets that then they process the material and pass it on to. Some will be American manufacturers that will reuse things. Some of them will go, a lot of the manufacturing, of course, is done in East Asia, so a lot of it will be shipped back as raw material or reprocessed material.
So this could impact the electronics recycling as well.
Well, it's certainly going to affect the marketplace for recyclable materials, but the market's pretty resilient. It tends to adapt. I think part of it you have to keep in mind is China was a very convenient dumping ground for the industry. There was no questions. It was an easy transaction. Now that will no longer be an easy transaction, so they'll have to find alternative solutions, which I imagine they will to some extent. How much of an extent? China's huge, of course, so they're having to compensate for that is not a small deal. It may take some time, but some of those adjustments may be more restrictions. It's a fluid marketplace, depending on environmental standards, how much materials in the pipeline, a number of things. So it's something we'll want to keep an eye on. I'm sure Jen is going to be on top of it, but I'll try to get more regular information from you.
Yeah, but the individual, again, I just appreciate so that I can get back to the individual who was asking me about it as to whether, essentially we can possibly lower the fee that's imposed per ton.
I'll send them a note right now that we'd like to see the financial analysis. We'll have a better, obviously, it's in pilot status still, so we'll have a better handle on what the true expenses are. Naturally, we want some margin there so that we don't have to turn around and raise it again in a short.
I think it's a program that our public has overwhelmingly shown their acceptance of it. And I think part of that is that I think what's important is we maintain the integrity of the program as well. We never intended to gouge the public here. This is not, the idea is that there is a cost involved, right? And we want to cover the cost for it. But, I've been amazed at the people from throughout, not just our county, but the region, that, essentially bought their electronics here to do the right thing, to have it recycled as opposed to, dumped down over the hill or onto our farms or wherever. So the people are willing to do the right thing. I just don't want us to abuse,
Right. But my personal opinion is that a penny or two is not really going to make a big difference. And I think it's also important that we keep a reasonable margin there to compensate for fluctuations so that we don't then have to subsidize it from.
No, we want to keep it.
It needs to be
I don't have any problem
self-sustained.
with that. That's why I think the analysis is something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are doing that. I'll make sure we get something from them.
Thanks, Gary. I'm sorry.
I have a question for you. I was recently approached by someone about the Open Planning Commission.
conceivably there could be a conflict, but I need to check that.
Wouldn't the conflict be episodic though? There's not an ongoing conflict there,
No,
as I understand.
it'd be periodic.
Because I think we addressed this under the previous solicitor. And of course, you know,
There's no question they can serve, but the issue could come up when a plan from that township comes before the planning.
and depending on what township, there could be a lot of them.
That's true.
The person is very hesitant, they want to serve, but they understand that it may not be the best. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. I'd like to report that executive sessions were held on the following dates for this year, 2018. June 25th at 1 p.m. for personnel issues, June 27th at 10:40 a.m. regarding potential litigation. Also on June 27th at approximately 2:10 p.m. for personnel issues. I'd also like to request that we go into executive session directly after this meeting for personnel issues. Is there any other business to bring before the Board of Commissioners today? Seeing none, I'll declare us as adjourned